just quick before they are loud in the background. But hello, it's nice to be able to help out in this role.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And then also Corey, who just popped off for a second, but it looks like he's back on. And we are recording. So he is helping with technology and analytics. Also has worked at the at CDOT, so we have some mutual connections in that way. Yeah, Corey, you want to go ahead and jump on and say hi?
Hi everyone, I'm Corey. I work at the Department of Public Safety, and I'll be assisting with tech for this group.
Yeah, so that was one of our big changes, is bringing on some new board members, and we're super excited about that. I mean, it's because we're growing and we want to continue to maintain the level of service that we can provide for you. And then, you know, us, Michelle, myself, and Claire, we're still here helping make sure that all of this continues in this community of practice. We still would like to fill a couple more seats. So one is the production lead. So you would be doing what I'm doing essentially right now. And what's really fun about this role is you're working directly with your presenters. And so it's a great networking opportunity, relationship building opportunity. It's really, really a fun position to be in. And then the other one is kind of a program support. So really being able to, I'm sorry, if you can mute yourself. I don't see my mute everyone option. So I had it a second ago, but thank you. Okay, so program support lead, that's just really, we need help maintaining our processes. We're looking at working on a nonprofit status, which means that we are going to have deadlines and paperwork, and what do we need to really be able to grow in that way. And so that's a really cool opportunity to kind of be that behind the scenes magic maker that makes this practice really thrive. Yeah, I do see that I'm the host, but for some reason I wasn't able to mute somebody at one point. So thank you all for helping out with that. And yeah, if you do want to join, if you're interested in joining, please just email to info@practitioners.org and tell us a little bit about why you're interested in serving, and which of those positions you think are best suited for you and why. And then just tell us a little bit about why you like change management. So we look forward to hearing from you on that and growing our team. Now, you all know this, but the reason that I always continue to come back to this is we do want you to come off mute and ask questions and participate. This is a community of practice, which means you all are an integral part of that. And if you want to do that, you can unmute with the unmute button, or you can always chime in and chat with us as well. The other way that you can really help contribute to our community is by presenting. I would say more than anything, that's something we really want to learn from each other, and we need you to be able to jump in and offer some of your expertise. Sometimes we'll do panels. So if you are interested, you'll have an opportunity to reply to our survey at the end of the webinar. We'll also send it out at the end of the webinar. So let us know there. You can also complete the survey, give us more ideas, ask questions, because you are an important part of this. So here it is, the purpose and direction, where we're going. We are an agnostic group of change management practitioners. We're here to learn from each other and inspire and lead change throughout the world, so that everyone impacted by change can really be successful with that change. So I think that's one of my favorite things about change management, is that people focus. So, you know, I came across this article, and I really appreciated it because this is Kathleen Allen, and a metaphor that I got from her. And birds on a wire, they'll sit there kind of, if we stop to watch them, the flock will generally stay together. And every once in a while, you'll see a bird or two birds fly off. And other birds notice this, they ruffle their feathers and they take note of that commotion and the disturbance, but don't necessarily follow. So the birds that flew off, they'll circle around and they'll come back to the wire. And then a little bit later, a couple more birds might try to initiate a change and fly off, and they'll see everybody ruffle their feathers and make a big circle and come back around, and everyone's still on the wire. And this pattern will take place for 5 or 6 cycles before all of a sudden all of the flock will join in and they will move to their next destination together. And I think what is valuable about this for me is sometimes we don't see the progress that we're making as we iterate and try and make changes. But if we just watch that one cycle of the birds flying away and flying back, we would think that they were unsuccessful in their efforts. But when we understand that pattern of iteration, then we can understand that sometimes it takes time and it takes a lot of that awareness, and it takes that that networking and that communication and everybody kind of trying it on their own before we can all move together and be successful in our changes. So if you're feeling a little bit stuck in any of the changes that you're trying to push forward, just know you are making progress. You are not spinning your wheels. It's just, change is just hard sometimes, and people will come on board when they understand that that's the right direction to go. So with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Melissa. Melissa, I'll let you introduce yourself and share your presentation with us for today.
Thank you. I will not try to talk while I'm sharing my screen. Okay, does that look good? Can you see my full slides? Yes, okay. Well, thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here. I've been part of this community of practice, I think, for maybe a year now. So I'm excited to share a little bit of information today, and then hopefully there will be plenty of time for questions and conversation, because I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this topic. I am a change management specialist at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. I have a little over 10 years of community nonprofit and public health experience. And I believe that being healthy should be easy so people can focus their energy on fulfillment. And I just want to share my why, because that's the reason I sought to learn more about behavioral insights. So that adds a little context. So the objectives for today are to learn how to start a community of practice on any topic, gain an introductory understanding of behavioral insights and the EAST framework, and then consider the value of using behavioral insights in the public sector. So this group, the public sector change practitioners, is a community of practice. So I'm going to spend less time on that topic. But I'll briefly share, because the Behavioral Insights Community of Practice at CDPHE, which is the acronym for Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, we're a little bit different. In general, a community of practice is simply a group of people with a shared interest who get together to discuss, learn, and adapt their practice on a particular topic. The Behavioral Insights Community of Practice started with the idea of using behavioral insights in public health. So we had that idea first. And from my corner of the organization, it didn't seem like we were really doing it. So I applied and received an innovation grant that allowed us to train staff in behavioral insights. After a 5-hour training, there was interest in applying what we learned, but since the topic was pretty new to us, we didn't feel equipped to go at it alone. So that's when we decided to get together and continue learning. I'll share a little bit about how it works for us. We meet once a month for 1 hour. We use Google tools to share resources and do work. And then I am the coordinator of the group, but I survey the group every 6 months or so to see what they're interested in, what topics they might want to cover. So as I said, we decided to start a community of practice around behavioral insights because we felt it was an important tool to complement existing tools such as change management, quality improvement, Lean, things like that. As public servants, we exist to serve the people, yet our policies, programs, and communications don't always seem as though they're designed with people in mind. I'm sure we've all had experiences as a user and maybe also as a staff member with this. So our two main projects with the group have been to hold a couple of forum clinics. So this is where we have people bring in forums or communications that might need some improvement, and we review them with a behavioral insights lens and suggest improvements. So that we've done that a couple of times and plan to do that more in the future. The other project we're currently in the middle of is an employee wellness project to develop a solution to the long bouts of sitting during the workday that most of us have probably had exacerbated by the pandemic. So it's really exciting for us to work on projects. We decided that if we don't have enough opportunity necessarily in our day-to-day work to apply behavioral insights, so we decided as a group that's how we're going to learn together. And I'll share a little bit of advice if you're interested in kind of starting your own community of practice on any topic. So the most important thing is just to find your people. Find the people who are interested in what you're interested in and get together and talk about it. For us, it is really helpful to have a coordinator, and that's the role that I play. So I schedule the meetings, I create agendas, I kind of try to keep us on track and check in with people to see what they're interested in. And that piece of getting input is really important. The community of practice, it's not my community of practice, it's all of us together. So we have different ways of getting input to see what's useful for people. We try to make our meetings valuable and also fun. I think for the people that have stuck around for the year and a half that we've been in existence, I think they enjoy the topic and we've enjoyed getting to know each other, and we try to make our meetings a little bit fun, so that's helpful. And then the last piece of advice is just to persist through slow patches. There's times that, you know, maybe only a couple of people can make it to a meeting, or it feels like we don't really know what we're doing or what should we work on. And that happens, and we just let it happen, and then we move on, and you know, something else comes up. So that's natural and normal, and just kind of prepare for that. So that's all I'm going to say about the kind of forming a community of practice piece. We can definitely talk more if it's of interest, but I wanted to get to the specific topic of behavioral insight. So this introduction will be brief, and we're planning to do a Q&A at the end, but please add any questions you have to the chat. I do want to acknowledge that I'm borrowing primarily from the Behavioral Insights team, which is an organization in the US and in the UK, and there's smaller features from other sources. So I'm really just sharing the information. I didn't create this information. That's what we'll dive in. So what are behavioral insights? For us at CDPHE, it's about applying low-cost, low-effort ideas to practical problems with an understanding of how people think and make decisions. So we're going to start with a short quiz, and I don't want anybody to panic. This won't be graded. We typically, if we were in person, we'd yell out the answers. In the virtual space, please just stay on mute, and you can just speak it or think it to yourself. And this is going to be quick. I'll only give about 5 seconds for each question. So here we go. First question, what emotion is the woman in the picture feeling? What is 10 times 10? What is 17 times 14? Now we're going to have a word problem. A bat and a ball cost $1.10 in total. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? finally, which line in this image is longer, top or the bottom? So the quiz we just took is designed to show us the difference between our System 1 and System 2 ways of thinking. The Nobel Prize winning psychologist Daniel Kahneman writes about how our brains work and gives the name System 1 and System 2. As you can see on the slide, System 1 is fast, unconscious, automatic. We use it for everyday decisions, but it can be error prone. System 2 is slow, conscious, effortful. We use it for complex decisions, and it's pretty reliable. Both System 1 and System 2 serve a purpose. Given the quantity of information our brain receives, System 1 helps us take mental shortcuts, which are necessary to get through our days, and often those mental shortcuts are correct and save us time and effort. However, there are times when those mental shortcuts can cause problems. This is why we need System 2. So let's go back to the quiz and see where these two ways of thinking showed up. So when you saw the photograph of the woman, you just knew that she was feeling happy without having to analyze her facial expressions. So that's your System 1. The same goes for question 2. You likely knew that 10 times 10 equals 100 instantly without much effort. This rapid, effortless thinking, again, is System 1. By contrast, most of us didn't know the answer to 17 times 14 right away. You probably knew how to solve it, but that would require time and effort. Kahneman calls this slower, conscious, and rational style of thinking System 2. On question 4, many people quickly come up with the answer of 10 cents for the price of the ball. The number just seems right. However, if you activate your System 2 to think carefully and deliberately, you will arrive at the correct solution of 5 cents. So I'll be quiet for like 3 seconds so you can read that explanation. Okay, and then for question 5, the same thing as question 4. The lines are actually the same length if you get out a ruler and measure them, but one line looks longer, and that's what comes to mind automatically. Even knowing that the two lines are of equal length doesn't stop them from appearing different lengths. I'm going to show this again. I do appreciate you taking the quiz and hope it wasn't too stressful for a Wednesday morning. This information about System 1 and System 2 is helpful and potentially interesting to know about ourselves so we can understand our own thinking, but it's especially helpful when thinking about our customers or clients or whoever you work with. When we plan or design communications, processes, or programs, we're typically using System 2. We're being very careful. We spend a lot of time on it. We have a lot of discussions and feedback about what we're creating. However, the people that are, whoever our audience is, they're typically operating in System 1. So when they read or interact with whatever we've designed, they're not spending as much time as we have. So the last time you designed a communication or a program, you might not have imagined the user experience at all, or you might have imagined that they are more like the first image. Calm, focused, nothing else going on around them, while they're giving full, thoughtful attention to your form, your process, whatever it is. This isn't likely for most people. The second image with the man distracted, he's driving, eating, drinking, talking on the phone, looking at his computer, which is definitely not recommended. Please don't drive that way. This is probably reality for most of us. I'm going to read the definition again because we all likely learned in change management that people need to hear something at least 5 times to internalize it. So again, behavioral insights are about applying low-cost, low-effort ideas to practical problems with an understanding of how people think and make decisions. So I'm hoping with that little bit of information that you're convinced of the value of the behavioral insights and ready to start thinking about applying it to your work. So the Behavioral Insights team offers us the EAST framework to help us design for our audience to be successful. And EAST stands for easy, attractive, social, and timely. I'll go into each element in more detail and provide an example. There is much more to the design of a behavioral intervention that we don't have time for today. So this is just kind of scratching the surface. I do want to I have a couple kind of other notes before we jump in. It is important to identify the right behavioral barrier for your audience. So if you send an email to someone with a form attached, some people might not respond because they didn't open the email, while others might have opened the email and thought the form was too complicated, so they dropped off. So your intervention, if you're trying to improve response rates, needs to match whatever barrier your audience is actually experiencing. And then most of the explanations that I'm going to share will focus on forms and communications, since it feels like an easy place to start applying behavioral insights, but that is not the only application. And finally, just wanted to share that the Behavioral Insights team from which I pulled most of this content originated in the UK government. So many of their examples come from the UK, and nearly all of them are focused on government. So a little bit of background. So first element is making it easy. And some ways to do this include defaults. So we have a strong tendency to go with the default or preset option, since it's easy to do. Making an option the default makes it more likely to be adopted. We can also reduce the hassle factor, sometimes called friction. So the effort required to complete a form often puts people off. Reducing the effort required can increase response rates and reduce errors. And then we can simplify messages. So making the message clear often results in a significant increase in response rates to communications. As an example of making things easy, the Behavioral Insights team ran a series of tests in the UK to improve tax collection rates by making it easier for individuals to pay. One of the simplest interventions involved testing the impact of removing one click. The original process, which is shown along the top of the screen, was for taxpayers to receive a letter in the mail with a link to a website. Once they got to the website, they then clicked a link to a form where they could pay their overdue tax. The intervention, shown along the bottom slide, changed the link that was in the letter to direct taxpayers directly to the payment form. So just removed one click. This change only slightly reduces the difficulty of responding, yet they found that the simple act of making the action easier had an unexpectedly large impact. Sending individuals directly to the form resulted in 2,000 more respondents than the original method. And note that this is only the test group, so you can imagine the impact if this intervention was scaled. So the next element is to make it attractive. We can attract attention and we can design rewards. So we're more likely to do something that our attention is drawn towards. Ways of doing this include use of images, color, or personalization. In terms of rewards, financial incentives are often highly effective, but alternative incentive designs such as lotteries can work well and cost less. So an example of making it attractive comes from the City of Chattanooga Police Department, who wanted to attract new applicants from a more diverse range of backgrounds to the police force. They tested which message on job advertisements was most effective at increasing applications and whether different messages appealed to different groups. The two postcards on the top row focus on serving the community by asking, are you ready to serve your community? And what would it mean to have an impact on your community? The two postcards in the bottom row focus on a personal appeal by asking, are you up for the challenge and are you looking for a long-term career? We're going to do a little poll. If you can chat into the chat box what you think was the most effective messaging to get more diverse applicants. So are you ready to serve? What would it mean to you? Are you up for the challenge and looking for a long-term career?
Melissa, can we look at that
1,
one
2,
more
3,
time?
4. Sure. Let me go back. So they're identical postcards. They just changed the messaging, if you can see it along the top part.
Thank you.
And there's a little bit of new messaging here, but you don't have to try to read that. I'm going to get to the chat. So a lot of people are saying 2, a couple, a 1, a 4. Okay. Okay. I see 2s and 4s, I feel like. So I will show you this chart. So actually the messages highlighting the challenge or the career benefits were particularly effective in getting people of color, which is what this chart shows, and women to apply. Messages that focused on the challenge of the job and the career benefits tripled the number of applicants overall, while messages that focused on the opportunity to serve or make an impact on the community showed no significant difference from not sending a postcard at all. And so you can see, just to kind of explain the chart a little bit, so this challenge and career were more of the personal appeal, and these were significantly, they showed a significant difference in recruiting people of color to apply. And so this was a relatively low cost, low effort intervention to just change the language and do some testing. So although you might think these percentages seem small, if you look at the population number, so they tested this with 7,600 people, a 1% increase could mean hundreds or thousands of people. So the next element is making it social. I feel like this is the one that we are all probably most familiar with. So ways we can do that are starting out with social norms. So you can show that most people, specifically people in a group that someone identifies with, you can show that most people perform the desired behavior. So describing what most people do in a particular situation encourages others to do the same. I do want to caution that this can work against us if we inadvertently reinforce a problematic behavior by emphasizing its high prevalence. We can also use the power of networks. So we're all embedded in a network of social relationships, and those we come into contact with shape our actions. I know anytime I am thinking about, a new restaurant to go to, I'll ask people around me or my coworkers if they've been there and what they think about it. So I think we all have some experience with that. Also, people have a strong instinct for reciprocity. Often there's an inherent desire that we have for fairness and to give back to others within our social network when we have received something ourselves. And then we can encourage people to make a commitment to others. So the easiest way to raise the stakes is to make your commitment in public or to another person who you respect or value. If you tell people you're going to start running, they're going to start asking you, did you start running yet? So it kind of raises the stakes and puts that social pressure to follow through. So one intervention that was simple and cheap to reduce antibiotic overprescription, again in the UK, 800 medical practices were sent a letter, and I guess I should say, I'll show the graph in just a second. I just don't want it to distract from the buildup. So 800 medical practices were sent a letter from the chief medical officer stating that the great majority, which equaled about 80% of practices in the recipient's local area, prescribed fewer antibiotics per head than yours. And this was a true statement. The letter also contained 3 simple actions to help ensure prescriptions were appropriate. So I'll show you the result of this trial where the letter was sent. There was a group, the control group did not receive the letter, so they just went on their business as usual. The treatment group is the group that received this letter with the social norm language, that they were actually prescribing much more than their other practices. So if you can see across this period of intervention was about 6 months, the orange line is consistently lower than the blue line. So those who received the letter reduced their antibiotic prescribing rates by 3% compared to those who didn't. So this led to 73,000 fewer antibiotic prescriptions with direct prescription cost savings of 92,000 pounds. I do want to mention ethics. As I said, the social norm that was inserted into this letter was true. And so whenever we do highlight social norms, they need to be true. It'd be unethical to lie to people or make up a percentage as a means of influence.
Melissa,
So the last element.
Melissa, do you have, it's Corey Freeze in here. Sorry, it just says CO Freeze on my profile.
No problem.
Example of what is some high level social norm messaging from that letter? I'd be very interested.
From the letter?
Yeah.
Yeah, the insert that they put into the letter was that the great majority of practices in your local area prescribe fewer antibiotics per head than yours. So that's what was stated in the letter, and this came from the chief medical officer, so it came from a kind of like an authority figure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So it's a little bit of almost a little bit of peer pressure.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. And we'll send out the slides after this. And so all of the links that are on the bottom of my slides will take you to more detailed. If you're really interested in any of these particular examples, you're welcome to take a deeper dive. There's longer explanations of what they did and how it all worked, but I just wanted to give a quick overview. So the last element of the EAST framework is to make things timely. And this just means that timing makes a difference. So you can prompt people when they're most likely to be receptive. The same offer made at different times can have drastically different levels of success. Behavior is generally easier to change when habits are already disrupted, such as around major life events. You can also highlight the immediate costs and benefits. We are more influenced by costs and benefits that take effect immediately than those that happen later. And then helping people plan. So there's a substantial gap between intentions and actual behavior. A proven solution is to prompt people to identify the barriers to action and develop a specific plan to address them. So this example comes from the city of Denver. The goal of this project was to get more people to renew their license plates online. You can see the original reminder postcard is this kind of like blue and white over here. And then the redesigned postcard on the right. The redesigned postcard has a few behavioral insights actually incorporated in here, but related to making it timely, there are planning prompts that ask the recipient to fill in dates by which they'll complete these actions. The postcard also makes it easy by breaking the process down into smaller steps, and it makes it social by asking for commitments to these actions. So I want to note that this postcard never needed to be returned. Simply setting up the postcard this way helped people plan, even if they didn't actually fill it out. And the result of this redesigned postcard was with over 400,000 license plate renewals in 2015, shifting people to renewing online could save both the city and its residents time and money. By providing drivers with the redesigned planning postcard, online license plate renewals increased by 7 to 8%. So this represents a shift of 9,000 renewals to the online system each year. So that's pretty significant for just changing the layout of a postcard. So that's the EAST framework. I want to end on the ethical piece that often comes up when we talk about using behavioral science to influence people. Some argue that any intentional effort to influence people is manipulative. However, there is no neutral version of a program, a process, or a form. The design of a form, or often what feels like the lack of design, influences our customers' experience and their success in completing their desired task. So we can use the EAST framework to make their experience less burdensome and help them get to success faster. You have some resources. We barely scratched the surface. I know that was probably pretty quick. There's so much more to know about behavioral insights, but here's some places to start. You'll be able to click on the links when you receive a copy of the slides. And then we have time for Q&A. I'd really love it to be a conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How might these ideas apply to change management and also your work outside of change management? And should I stop sharing my screen or should I keep it up just in case?
That's up to you. People might want your contact information, so we can leave that up.
Okay.
I can see some comments in the chat. One example is like the gas and electric bills that tell you how your usage compares to your neighbors. Not sure. So just love this concept, very clever, wonderful presentation, thought-provoking. Thank you. Anybody else have, well, questions or maybe more examples also of how you've seen this work?
It's Corey here again. I don't have any examples, but it's giving me some ideas when working with a project team as a change manager. Often little tips and tricks I'm learning through my professional development and webinars such as this one, make it a really valuable input into something for a project manager to consider when we're implementing something that's getting a little too tricky or complex and you want to make it simpler. So it's not really a question, just a comment. I can see this being very valuable. I wrote down the number for the online course. It's very interesting.
Thank you, Corey. I agree.
I just wanted to mention, I really find it applicable, the make it attractive portion. I find it, especially in terms of most communication internally within the organization, it's hard to get eyes on like a specific communication. Like it's too long, too wordy. So I try to make changes to like more imagery or like split up a complex message into smaller, easier to quickly read. Or but there was a second portion on your slide. I think it was about rewarding. And like when you had the examples, the 4 postcards, I picked number 4 because the reward of having a long-term career is like the benefit, right? So it's kind of like the rewarding action versus say, you know, that there's a challenge that's out there. I thought that was a really good point, and I want to try to apply that to some of the communication that I have with our members, is so that like highlighting what is the benefit to them will help them to really take more interest and maybe read in more detail.
Yeah, with that one, and I should say in general with behavioral insights, a big piece of what they do is testing on a small group and seeing what works and then scaling it. That's something we need to get better with our community of practice. We have used these ideas to change our communications. We've a lot more bullet points. You know, we've tried to put the question or the ask at the very beginning, like simple things like that you can start doing. However, we haven't really tested it, and that's a big piece, because I think what I remember reading about that particular example is that they assumed that, I think they did a focus group initially to kind of see what kind of messages resonate with people. And in the focus group, it seemed like, oh, the community impact, serving the community, that's what people were drawn to. But often in a focus group, you have that social pressure. You don't want to look selfish, or like, you're still concerned of what the other people in the focus group think. So they said, yeah, serving my community, that's why I would join the police force. But when they actually tested the postcard, which is more of an individual, you're reading that at home and making a decision, it was more of the personal appeal, like, what can this do for me? How does this affect my life? That's what actually drew more applicants. So it is interesting. Part of my interest or fascination with behavioral insights is just some things that seem counterintuitive are reality. Like, we might think we know how people are going to behave, but then when we test it, it ends up being very different.
Melissa, if I may, first, thank you for a great presentation, very thought-provoking. For your community of practice, are you finding most of the interest and participation within your division or department, or are you finding other departments or agencies in the Colorado state government family also starting to find some interest in this and using some of the tools that you've discussed here and maybe others? Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't specifically, well, I should say I haven't done a lot of outreach to other departments. So our community of practice is specific to CDPHE. However, part of this presentation today is the hopes that we can see who else is doing this or interested in doing this and kind of broaden our network. I do know, I kind of heard through the grapevine, and I need to follow up on it. CDHS had a behavioral insights training outside of the state system. Denver Peak Academy from the city and county of Denver, they had behavioral insights training like years ago. They're definitely way ahead of us on that front. We have planted one of our former community of practice members at OIT, so maybe that will spread some stuff there. So I'm not sure. If you know of anyone, though, I'd love to be connected so we can all kind of learn together and figure out how this applies to different areas of our work.
I'll just add that the recruiting for the police department really resonated with me for where I work. Is at one point the RAND organization did a study for the state patrol in terms of how to improve potentially appeal for diversity in candidates that are applying for the Trooper Academy. And I'm not sure where that goes forward, but that really captivated my interest. So I might chat with folks here to say might have an interest in that. It could be something beneficial. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, so I guess I also heard, so the woman that that works at the Behavioral Insights team that came and delivered the training to us actually used to work in the governor's office on the performance team. So she's got a lot of connections and I think has probably been doing outreach. So they also did a project with DORA, I think. Is that the right acronym for that department? So I think it's like kind of happening. It's just like we're, it hasn't risen to the level of change management or Lean or some of these other named kind of tools. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do, is make it a little more well-known. Any other examples or questions, or can you see this applying to your work? Are you interested in learning more and kind of learning together?
Melissa, this is Jamie Harrell. I work with emergency planning, and I've got, this is great. So thank you truly for sharing this information. I have a question related to kind of the research that's been done out there with our communities with diversity and inclusion and getting the folks involved with kind of the movement with emergency planning. Is there and has there been a lot of research done with our diverse communities out there, and what works well, what works better, you know, kind of along the lines of that postcard, getting folks involved in that way? How much research is out there with our disability communities, with our communities of color, with our tribal communities out there? Is there research? And if so, where would I find that?
That's a great question, and that's definitely of interest to me. I will say my answer is I don't know. I'd have to look it up and get back to you. There are some, the resources that I shared on the slide, the Behavioral Insights team, Ideas 42, those are the two main organizations that are in the US that are working on behavioral design, but there's a lot of programs at universities, specifically the University of Toronto has a whole program dedicated to this, the University of Pennsylvania. So I can pull some of that together and share it with you. I will say one of the relevant insight, I guess, is that especially that's what in the social norms piece of it, I was hoping to point out that when we think about social norms, it's like when you show the reference group, like this group is doing this, it needs to be a group that is relevant to your audience. It needs to be a group that your audience identifies with. And, you know, so if you show a group of, middle-aged white men and say like, they're all doing this, like there's a lot of groups of people that are going to say, I don't really care what they're doing because I don't relate to them. I don't see myself in them. So that piece I have read about, but in terms of the rest, I'd definitely be happy to do some digging and share with you.
Thank you very much.
And I guess to also add on to that, that's where the testing piece comes in too, is because you don't know how. You can imagine and you can read all of the existing research of how different messages might be interpreted by different groups, but until you test it with that group, you don't really know how they're receiving that message or what's influential.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry for those who are putting things in the chat. I'm not really tracking those. I don't know if someone else is, and because it sounds like there's kind of some conversation that maybe people want to unmute and share.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of appreciation here and some examples of current applications. And I think there is some conversation around the ethical concern. And if Ellie, if you're, or wait, yeah, if Ellie, if you're still on, if you wanted to elaborate on your point a little bit. So I can jump in and am I interrupting somebody? I just see that she was talking about the importance of being clear in your intentions, and so using behavioral insights. Maybe if you're not being transparent, I'm interpreting this, then that's where it could be seen as manipulative. But
Yeah, there's a whole, there's a lot of conversation out there about the ethics. So there's definitely more than me just like giving one or two statements about ethics. There's a lot of discussion, and I think that's appropriate to dive deeper into that. But I do think the point of nothing is neutral is the one that I just wanted to get across. you can, things could be designed unintentionally. You can randomly, like there's a lot of research about cafeteria design, and how that influences how people eat. So you can not know any of that research and just set up your cafeteria however you want, not really knowing why. But that still has an influence on people. So if you learn about what kind of influence that has on people, and if you know your audience is trying to eat healthy, or you want to make being healthy easier, then maybe don't put like all the junk food at the grocery line checkout, because that people, you're waiting in line, you're ready to go, you're hungry, that is an influence on your behavior. And so it's just about being intentional versus being, if you're unintentional, you're still influencing them, and that influence could be harmful or for, something that they don't actually prefer.
Thank you for elaborating on that. Anything else? Right, we'll wrap up here then. Just as many of you probably already know, on our website, you can find the recordings and the slide decks. They should be up maybe later today, and maybe within the week, they'll be up soon. And also, we do have a LinkedIn group if you want to join us there. Please fill out our survey. You can scan that code right there, and you can fill it out now, or you will also be getting it sent to you after the webinar is complete. We are, as mentioned, always looking for presenters, so please let us know if you're interested in that. There's some more appreciation for Melissa in the chat, and I know we definitely appreciate Melissa's contribution. Great topic for us to all dig in a little bit, and can, I think, really help the work we're trying to do. Great, and looks like Corey has posted our LinkedIn page if you want to join us there. All right, thank you, Heather. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, great to see you all, see some of you, hear from you, and we appreciate you all. Looking forward to seeing you next time. We do have something for June lined up, so we'll see you back then. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. That was awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Very, very good, guys. Impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.